Liam had always known that his father, Albert, was getting older. But it wasn't until that evening, when they sat down for dinner together, that it truly hit him how much his father had changed. Albert's once strong hands were now shaky, and his back seemed to ache more with every movement. Despite all of this, he kept the repair shop going. It was his life. But Liam knew the shop wasn't enough to keep them going anymore. The small repair shop had been their family's lifeblood for as long as Liam could remember. The building was old, with paint peeling off the walls, and there was always a faint smell of metal and oil in the air. But the shop had character, just like his father. The shelves were filled with spare parts for cars, broken machinery waiting to be fixed, and stacks of old tools that had seen better days. But what made the shop special wasn't the items in it. It was Albert's skill and dedication to fixing anything that came through the door. Liam could still remember the first time he picked up a wrench, his father teaching him how to tighten bolts, adjust gears, and replace parts. Albert's instructions had always been clear, his voice calm and steady. But lately, Liam had seen his father struggle. The same hands that had once worked so confidently now seemed too tired to keep up. As they ate their simple dinner, soup and bread, Liam couldn't help but notice the tired look in his father's eyes. Albert had always been strong, but now he seemed like he was holding on by a thread. "Dad," Liam said, his voice filled with concern. "You've worked so hard all your life. The shop, it's not making enough money anymore. Maybe I should go to the city. I could find a job and send money back home. You could rest, and Gwen could keep studying. You don't have to keep working so hard." Albert put down his spoon and looked at Liam. His face, though wrinkled with age, still held the warmth and kindness that had always been there. But there was a sadness in his eyes, a deep knowing that his son was about to make a decision that would change their lives. "You're my only son, Liam," Albert said softly. "I want you to have a better life than this. But family is everything. I need you here with me. You and Gwen, you're all I have left." Liam felt the weight of his father's words, but he also knew what needed to be done. He looked over at his sister Gwen, who was sitting quietly beside their father. She was still young, just a teenager, but she had always been smart and determined. She wanted to go to school, to make something of herself. Liam knew that he had to make sure she had that chance. "I know, Dad," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll come back, I promise. But I have to do this, for you and for Gwen." Albert looked at him for a long moment before finally nodding. He reached out and put a hand on Liam's shoulder, his grip firm but gentle. "If this is what you want, go. But remember, family is your foundation. Don't forget where you come from. The next morning, Liam packed his things. His heart was heavy as he said goodbye to his father and sister, knowing it would be a long time before he could return. As he left the small town and headed for the city, he carried the weight of his family's hopes and dreams with him. The city was everything Liam had imagined it would be: big, noisy, and full of people rushing from one place to the next. The buildings stretched up high, blocking out the sun in some places. Everywhere he looked, there were cars, buses, and bikes zooming past. It was nothing like the quiet little town he had grown up in. Liam had heard stories about how much opportunity there was in the city. People said that if you worked hard enough, you could make a name for yourself. But as soon as Liam arrived, he realized that things weren't as easy as he had hoped. The city was crowded, and jobs were hard to come by. He spent his first few days looking for work. He knocked on doors, spoke to business owners, and filled out applications. But each time he was told the same thing: "Sorry, we're not hiring." Liam felt his hope slowly start to fade, but he didn't give up. He knew he had to keep trying for his family. It wasn't until the 4th day that Liam got a break. He walked into a small garage on the edge of the city, a place that looked run down but smelled of fresh oil and car parts. The man behind the counter, a burly mechanic named Dave, looked him up and down before shrugging. "You got experience?" Dave asked, his voice gruff. Liam nodded. "I've worked with my dad in a repair shop for years." Dave gave him a long look before pointing to the back. "All right, go clean up that mess back there. If you do a good job, I'll consider hiring you." Liam didn't hesitate. He grabbed a broom and set to work, sweeping up the cluttered area. He knew that if he wanted this job, he had to prove himself. After a few hours of cleaning, Dave came back to check on him. He looked at the clean floor and nodded approvingly. "You did good," he said. "Start tomorrow. We'll see how you do." Liam felt a sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He knew that he had to work hard, learn everything he could, and earn his place. Liam's first few weeks at the garage were tough. He was often assigned to do the most basic jobs: sweeping, oil changes, and basic repairs. But he didn't mind. He was just happy to have a job. Over time, he started to learn more about the work, picking up new skills from the other mechanics. They taught him how to fix engines, change tires, and work on brakes. One day, Dave pulled him aside and handed him a wrench. "You're doing better than I thought, kid. I'm going to give you a shot at something bigger tomorrow. Don't mess it up." Liam nodded, determined to prove himself. The next day, he worked on his first big repair, a car that needed a new transmission. He spent hours on it, carefully following the instructions his coworkers had shown him. By the time he was done, the car was running smoothly again. Dave was impressed. "Not bad, kid. Not bad at all. You're moving up." As time went on, Liam became a trusted worker at the garage. He was promoted to doing more complex repairs, and slowly his paycheck grew. He knew that he had come a long way from the small town where he had grown up. But no matter how much money he made, a part of him still longed to return home and take care of his family. With every paycheck, Liam felt torn. He sent money back to his father and sister, helping them with bills and expenses. But at the same time, he dreamed of one day opening his own shop. He imagined having his own place, with a sign out front that said, "Liam's Auto Repair." He imagined a future where his father could finally rest, and his sister could go to college without worrying about money. But as his responsibilities at the garage grew, so did the pressure. Liam found himself working long hours, often late into the night. Slowly, he lost contact with his family. He called them less and less, and the letters he wrote grew shorter. He was becoming too busy to stay connected. Liam had settled into his new life in the city. He worked long hours, learning new skills every day, and his reputation at the garage began to grow. Dave, the owner of the garage, had become a mentor to him. He was tough, but fair, and Liam admired him for the way he managed the shop and treated his employees. But despite the growth in his career, Liam felt something was missing. One afternoon, while taking a break in the garage, Liam sat on a bench, wiping the sweat from his forehead. The shop was noisy, with the hum of engines and the clinking of tools. But his mind was far away, back in the small town where his father and sister still lived. That's when Mr. Coleman, an older man who had been a regular at the garage for years, walked over to him. Mr. Coleman was a mechanic who had retired, but still liked to spend time in the shop, offering advice to the younger workers. He was in his 70s, with a thick gray beard and kind eyes. "You've been working hard, Liam," Mr. Coleman said, taking a seat next to him. "But don't forget, there's more to life than just work." Liam looked up at the older man, unsure what to say. "I know you've been sending money home, helping your family," Mr. Coleman continued. "But what are you doing for yourself? You're a good worker. I see it in you. But don't lose sight of the things that matter." Liam shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to hearing advice like this. "I want to do more," he said. "I want to open my own shop one day. Make sure my father doesn't have to work so hard anymore." Mr. Coleman nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good dream. But you have to take your time with it. Don't rush things. make sure you're ready before you take the leap. And remember, no matter how much money you make or how far you go, family is everything. Liam felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't spoken to his father or sister in over a month. They'd sent him letters, but he hadn't responded as much as he should have. Family is everything, Liam repeated to himself, as if the words were a reminder to stop and think about what he was doing. Liam's life in the city continued to be busy. He worked hard and moved up quickly at the garage. But one day, everything changed. It was an ordinary Thursday, and Liam was working on a car that had been brought in for a major repair. The job was tricky, but Liam had done similar work before. As he worked, he lost track of time. The garage was crowded with cars, the air thick with the smell of grease and gasoline. Suddenly, as Liam bent over to tighten a bolt on the engine, the car slipped from the jack and crashed down, pinning his leg underneath it. The pain was immediate and intense, sending a shock through his entire body. He screamed out for help, but the noise of the garage made it hard for anyone to hear. It felt like an eternity before the other mechanics rushed over and managed to lift the car off him. They quickly carried him to the hospital, where doctors confirmed he had broken his leg in several places. The injury was serious, and Liam would need weeks to recover. As he lay in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and bandages, Liam's thoughts turned to his family. He realized that for the past few months, he had been so focused on work that he had forgotten the most important thing, his family. His father, Albert, was growing older, and Gwen, his younger sister, needed him. As soon as Liam was able to sit up in bed, he made the decision to call his father. It had been too long since they last spoke, and he felt terrible for not being there when they needed him most. The phone rang, and Liam's heart raced as he waited. "Hello?" His father's voice came through the line, full of surprise and warmth. "Dad, it's Liam," he said, his voice shaking a little. "I'm sorry. I haven't called in a while. I got hurt at work. I broke my leg." There was a pause on the other end, and then Albert's voice, filled with concern, came through. "Are you okay, son? What happened?" Liam explained the accident, his voice quiet as he recounted the events. But as he spoke, he realized how much he had missed his father's comforting presence. "I'm fine, Dad," Liam said after a moment. "But I've been thinking a lot. I've been so focused on making money and building a future for us that I've forgotten what's really important. I'm coming home." Albert was quiet for a moment. "Liam, you don't have to come back for me. I can handle the shop. You've got a life there, and you're doing well. I'm proud of you. but Liam could hear the sadness in his father's voice. "I'll be home soon, Dad. I promise. I'll be there to help." A few weeks later, Liam returned to the small town. His leg was still in a cast, but he was determined to make things right. When he arrived, Gwen was waiting for him. She ran up to him and hugged him tightly, and Liam could see the relief in her eyes. "You're home," she said, her voice full of emotion. Albert was sitting outside the shop, his face lighting up when he saw Liam approach. His old, worn body stood up slowly, but his smile was as bright as ever. "I'm glad you're here, son," Albert said, pulling Liam into a hug. "I've missed you." Liam felt a lump in his throat as he hugged his father. It felt like everything had come full circle. The shop had fallen into disrepair during Liam's time away, but it wasn't too late to fix things. Liam had saved up some money during his time in the city, and he decided to use it to restore the shop. He spent days cleaning, organizing, and making repairs. Slowly, the shop began to look like it once had, a place full of life and purpose. With his father's help, Liam reopened the shop, and they began working together once again. Gwen helped too, running errands and managing the paperwork. The family was whole again. As Liam stood in the shop, working alongside his father and sister, he realized that he had found what truly mattered. The journey to this point had been difficult, but it had taught him something important. No matter how far he went or how much he achieved, his family would always be his foundation. Liam had learned that success wasn't just about making money or building a career. It was about staying true to the people who loved and supported you. It was about being there for each other, no matter the circumstances. As they worked together in the small repair shop, Liam knew that he had made the right choice. His dreams for the future hadn't gone away, but now they were shared with his family. And that was worth more than anything he could have built alone.